we've been ranking teams, right? We've just been kind of talking about Big Ten. We obviously got the new guys joining the conference. A couple of weeks ago, we started off with defense. We gave top 5 defenses. Last week, we had a special guest, so we kind of switched it up a little bit. But this week, we wanted to kind of finish that off and just talk about the offense. So we wanted to kind of go through and just rate the top 5 offenses that, in our opinion, that's in the Big Ten. We're going to do this the opposite order because we kind of agree a lot here, which is not always the case. But for this one here, we kind of agree. So starting off at the number 1 spot, we gave it to, you might have guessed it, the Buckeyes, Ohio State, as the number 1 offense in the Big Ten. Chimp, I know you might have been a little bit more stronger on that than I was. But would you just go ahead, tell the people what you're thinking when you think of Ohio State offense in this 24 season and why they should be number 1 in the conference and definitely competing to be number 1 in the nation.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think Ohio State has a real or true weakness at the starters, right? So, like, I go across position to position. We talked about the linebacker position. That may be one of the positions where you get the most, like, the least amount of experience. And then, safety, there may be some challenges with depth, but in terms of the guys who are starting, tons of experience, tons of high-level talent, high-level play. Cornerback across the board. But specifically for offense, 2 running backs that might be the 2 best running backs in college football.
Yeah.
Receivers, and now there is some freshness at receiver a little bit with, some guys leaving. But I think this crop of receivers collectively is even more talented than what we had last year. Which to me is saying a lot for Ohio State.
Who lost to Morrison Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then, tight ends, we lost a big guy in Case Stover. But I think and you may not agree with this, to me at quarterback, you look across the Big Ten, probably one of the most experienced and one of the better quarterbacks going into the season, in my opinion. I think Will Howard ends up getting the nod. I think there's a reason why they brought him here from Kansas State. He's played a lot of football, and him being able to run this offense with the level of talent that exists. And then it's not just the players. Bringing in Chip Kelly, to me, was a key add just in creating that solid offensive coordinator, aligned Ryan Day to step back and really be kind of that CEO. I don't think it's that close in terms of who's top. Maybe I don't want to get too carried away. I don't want to get too carried away with the bias. Oregon was a top 5 offense probably in every category last year, so I'm not gonna say it's not close. But outside of Oregon, I don't think it's really close with anybody else in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I got Ohio State number 1. I mean, really, I could just piggyback everything you said, check all those boxes. I was a little tough on Chip on the first hire. Then I had to, dig into it. Like, oh no, this guy's really running the ball. And we know Coach Day and his offense, he'll be able to kind of stretch it and hit some shots down the field. So we just know it's going to take place, right? But we talked a lot about Will Howard. We did not bring up Devin Burn the Boats Brown, and who is also competing for that starting role spot. And obviously, it would work out how it work out. But I guess I'm still under the impression, and I have to keep bringing it up, that the starting quarterback position for Ohio State, as in any of these roles, he has to be in the mix because, in my opinion, he's been here now for going on his 3rd season. He's been the right thing. Did what he could. He lost the battle last year, stuck around. He's there. He has a lot of experience around Ohio State. Obviously, Will Howard has the experience of actually playing on Saturdays. But to me, it has to play out in practice. If Will Howard's the guy, he's going to have to beat him out in practice for him to kind of get that spot. Because if not, as we know in the spring, a lot of things kind of started off with Devin Brown.
I disagree. I don't think he has to beat him out in practice, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other thing, man. Look, man, don't dive into it that much.
But
man.
I just want to be clear. I don't want to dismiss anybody as from a competition standpoint. I think Devin Brown can compete for the opportunity. I think it's one of those things where he's competing for second place initially, and then based on how things start off, he could, if things aren't going as smoothly as coaches want, and they trust Devin Brown to take the reins, I think that opportunity presents itself. However,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Will Howard
But
is
that
like
wasn't
that.
what I was going with this whole thing. What I was going with this whole thing, Chim, is that Ohio State is the number one offense in the Big Ten. I say behind them is number 2 Oregon, which you agree. And I have to say the only argument here for Oregon, if we wanted to maybe jump them over Ohio State, is the quarterback play. Obviously, they had a transfer and Dylan Gabriel come over from Oklahoma over to Oregon. They got Dante Moore, a very talented young player on the roster as well. You imagine that Gabriel gets to start. But if you ask me who was the better quarterback last year in college football, I will probably give it to Dylan Gabriel over the performance we got from Will Howard. But that's just the quarterback position. That's just the quarterback position. Like I said, Ohio State is number 1, but number 2, I have Oregon there, just knowing basically what they could do, the talent they have brought in throughout the transfer portal, and you imagine that they'll be able to kind of set themselves up to be pretty successful on the offensive end of the ball. Like we say, we expect them to be one of the top teams in the country. Defensive, offensively, they should be able to compete with it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon hasn't missed a beat. From a transfer portal standpoint, Ohio State did get in the transfer portal, but I feel like Oregon. I mean, they got two starting quarterbacks, a veteran and a young guy. And I don't know who was already on the roster at quarterback, but I feel bad for them, right? It's hard to anticipate 2 guys coming in. And last year, Oregon, in terms of offensive stats, I think they were top 5 in pretty much all the stats that mean anything. So, yeah, they're gonna be at the top. And statistically, they may actually be better than Ohio State, like in terms of stats. I just think Ohio State overall would probably be the most talented offense.
Yeah, I mean, we all know stats could be misleading, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, especially when you're looking at the collegiate level, right? I mean, your stats may come against a team in a conference that's not the Big Ten, where another team's stats are coming against this different competition, right? So it kind of wrinkles out a little bit differently. But I think that's a solid spot for Oregon. We expect them. They've been good. We expect them to continue to do that. There'll be nothing that kind of says anything different. At that 3 spot, I think once again we both agree that we put USC there, right? We put number 3, USC. Just knowing who the coach is. if there's anything he's going to do, he's going to put out a stacked offense. Obviously, they lost the number 1 draft pick to the going to the NFL, the Bears. But we saw the other guy, Miller Moss here, play in a bowl game, and I don't think he's missing much. I mean, he went out there and lit him up, right?
Yeah, I mean, all Lincoln Riley does is create first-round quarterbacks, Heisman Trophy winner. So I expect, I don't necessarily expect him to create another Heisman Trophy winner this year. But I don't put it past them either. I think they're gonna play offense. If they do anything this year, they are going to play offense. They're almost the opposite vibe, where it's like they haven't been interested in defense, but they're gonna perform well on offense. So they may actually be in the mix. They may be closer to Oregon, Ohio State, depending on how that quarterback continues to develop in terms of offensive play. And the real question for USC is really just defense.
As always, the defense. Yeah. So at the 4th spot, we both pit Penn State there. Obviously, we know Penn State has he's still, he just had his first season, but he has some talent at quarterback with Drew Ayler. And Penn State has never had a tough time finding a way to run the ball. So we put Penn State at that 4th spot. What is your thought about James Franklin's offense now?
Yeah.
Running under Drew and what they could be possibly capable of with another year under his belt.
Yeah, Penn State is the good college football team that I always talk bad about. Like they're like the Cincinnati Bengals when they had what was the coach?
Marvin Lewis.
Marvin Lewis. Like they're just gonna be good, but they're never gonna be great. And that's what to me, that's what it looks like with the quarterback. A really good quarterback, an experienced guy. You expect him to take a jump this year. Like this is the year where you expect him to take a jump. But Penn State, like they oddly didn't have explosive wide receivers last year. So for them to really improve, and I think is Ohio State, Oregon, USC, and I think there's a little bit of gap in terms of offense between USC and Penn State, unless they have a receiver that emerges. They had one receiver who was transferred from Ohio State to go to Penn State. Mm-hmm. I don't think it makes a difference. I don't think that's the difference. I think one of their young guys that they had on the roster last year needs to step up and emerge. I think they had some talent there, but it just was weird. They just didn't have that explosive receiver that you always had at Penn State. So I think that's going to be the difference. Yeah, I think that's going to be difference. Do they have a receiver that's explosive? And does that quarterback throw the ball downfield? He just did not. He just didn't throw the ball downfield last year. So we'll see. I mean, the teams that are better than they're gonna be explosive. But it's really against those top teams that we, check to see what their offense really is going to be.
Yeah, and that wide receiver is Julian Fleming. Played for Ohio State. I mean, he played quite a bit at his time here, and he was good in spots. Really, once again, he was another guy that was rated really high coming out of high school with a lot of hopes. And I ain't gonna say, it's not like he didn't live up to it, right? It's just, like I say, he was good in spots. And for his last year of college football, he's from Pennsylvania. He's gonna play at Penn State. And once again, he's not a take the roof off the defense type of guy, but in possessions, he definitely could, help you out. Strong guy, strong hands that could catch the ball and move the chain. So it'd be, interesting to see there. Now we did things in opposite order because we kind of disagree about this 5 spot. For myself, I put at the 5 spot. I put Washington in the Washington Huskies. I know they're new to the conference, and they a lot of change, right? Lost a coach, lost a lot of really good players, but they bring in Will Rogers, who was a 3-year starter at Mississippi State. They bring him in at the quarterback position, so he has a ton of experience there. They bring in the coach out of Arizona, who's from last year had a top 20 offense. So Jed Fish brings him in from Arizona, and so I just think that they'll figure out. Obviously, they had a lot of transfers from Arizona, follow him to Washington. Washington has been a solid program over the last handful of years. Whether with coaches changes and things of that nature, because so far Washington kind of fit in that spot, right? But I just feel like they'll be kind of come in, figure it out. Obviously, he has a program or offense that he wants to run. Jed Fish does, and so far tends to be successful. With another experienced quarterback, I Bleav he'll be able to kind of continue to do that. And Washington is another team that's never really been afraid to run the ball and kind of hurt you there as well. Jim, who do you have in your 5th spot?
I got that team up north. I got Michigan.
Oh, man. Listen, come on, man. Come on.
I mean, Washington, you talk about a lot of change. I mean, like, they may be experiencing some of the most change in college football. New coach.
New coach.
A bunch of transfers. A lot of them coming with the coach from Arizona. So, I mean, I guess there's some familiarity.
Yeah, man. The guys know the playbook already.
New conference. Completely new conference. New quarterback. And they're gonna try to run the kind of the same approach, get a veteran quarterback somewhere else. They work with Michael Penix. I don't really foresee that they're able to reach the heights or get close to what they were able to do the year before, because it's a new coach. And I think it's just too much change. I'm going with the.
Hey, one question for you: is the field still 100 yards?
I think they expanded that field. Maybe a couple inches.
No,
like
man, the game is the game. The game is the game.
I think it's like one. It may feel longer than 100 yards for Washington. I would say that. I think the Wolverines, with the consistency, even though they've lost they lost their coach, but they still got a guy who was an offensive coordinator, who's going to be the head coach. I know they're going to have a new quarterback, and then looking at the spring game, I don't know if they really figured out who that guy is truly going to be.
They did.
But I think just their running attack alone puts them in the spot to be that fifth best offense in the Big Ten. Again, it's the Big Ten, right? The defense, taking care of the football, not turning it over, sound football. Michigan embodies that, and I think they do enough just running the ball to field a pretty good offense. And I think Washington, they may have their explosive games, but I think when they play those big teams, I just don't foresee them being able to have a consistent offense similar to what they did the year before. But I don't know.
Yeah, man. I just don't agree. I put them on that list on the defense side of things. They're not about to keep getting put on lists from me. So man, that's enough. They I gave them a check on defense and offensively. They don't have a quarterback.
Your bias is blinding
They
you.
lost their coach. I mean, last year they really was, they had a little assistance in calling plays. They kind of always knew which ones to call at the right time. You know what I'm leading at. So yeah, they won't have that this year, and things will look definitely different in Ann Arbor when it comes on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, man, before we wrap up the show here, just wanted to shout out that now in the summer, a lot of our top recruits, they're taking their official visits here over the month of June. So we'll continue to have some news there. We expect some commitments, right? Most guys commit by the end of the summer. So once we kind of have things confirmed, we will be sharing that here on our show as well. As always, please subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get podcasts from. We are there. Please hit that subscribe button so when the season comes, we can start going live. We can have some real interaction because that's what we really want to gear up to. But that's our show for today. As always, we want to end all our shows with an OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks. We catch you guys here soon.
Go Bucks.